understanding? Do you understand?
What's that? What's that, Keith?
Back off, dude. Back off.
Yeah, Keith. You're out of line. You're out of
In Deadliest Catch, viewers have witnessed the intense challenges faced by crews battling brutal conditions to secure valuable catches. Yet beyond the waves, tensions rises on board, occasionally boiling over into explosive conflicts. From heated exchanges to full-blown screaming matches, the show exposes the raw emotions and rivalries among the cast as they are trapped in the ocean. Join us on this special episode as we reveal the most intense fights that happened in the famous fishing show. Onboard troubles in the middle of the ocean. On this fishing boat, tensions were rising among the crew. It all started when the captain, Wild Bill, was surprised to hear that they were out of bait. The problem stemmed from Bill, a crew member who hadn't done his job of baiting the pots properly. Baiting the pots was a crucial step in their fishing process, ensuring they could catch crabs efficiently. Another crew member, Nick, was frustrated because he had to take over baiting duty after Bill neglected his responsibilities. The atmosphere on the boat became strained due to these issues. Nick, already upset with Bill's negligence, lashes out at another crew member, Vasile, for not helping with the bait. This delay caused the crew to fall behind schedule, unable to set out their lines without the necessary bait. Nick's anger escalated, accusing Vasile of laziness and carelessness. Captain Wild Bill, concerned about the situation, sided with Nick, showing his support for the crew's frustration. It's understandable to feel frustrated when a member neglects his duty, but when a newbie makes mistakes repeatedly, it also affects the work passion of the crew, and that was what happened with Captain Scott and his new crew member. The slow-paced newcomer. In this next scene, Scott's crew was struggling to catch crabs when things got heated. Their first catch wasn't successful, leaving them anxious for the next one. The inexperienced greenhorn made mistakes, frustrating the rest of the crew. Captain Scott sensed growing discord among the crew and urged everyone to stay focused. Despite their hard work, they couldn't find any crabs, adding to their frustration. The rookie's lack of skill caused further problems, leading crew members like Dan to reach their breaking point. Amidst the tension, Danny got into a fight with one of the junior crewmates. Captain Scott intervened, warning about the dangers of their job and the importance of teamwork. Old sailors get angry with the new team members because of new mistakes, but then the next case is unique. The good luck haircut. Every group of people has traditions, and on most sailing ships, tradition is upheld well, regardless of how old you are. When you get on board as a newbie, you have to follow the tradition. An old crew member, Freddie, attempts to make the haircut ritual work by tricking Dane into doing it, but Dane would rather ignore it as a foolish act. However, the clash between Freddie's efforts and Dane's stubbornness leads to tension in the crew. The old crew member, Freddie, feels the greenhorn Dane's refusal to get a lucky haircut is disrespectful to tradition. Freddie takes Dane's stubbornness as a challenge to his authority and threatens to make his life difficult on the boat if he does not follow his instructions. On the other ship, the Time Bandit, Hillstrand and his crew opted to have some fun by firing their fireworks at the Northwestern. The crews exchanged some playful shots in a fireworks battle, but they finally agreed to call for a truce and watch a fireworks show together. Traditions are meant to be fun and not cause fights, but what could cause some brawls would be if some crew members got drunk while they were on duty and ended up delaying the whole crew. Crewmate drunk on ship duty. On board the fishing vessel, Captain Jake gets irritated when two crew members, accused of going out drinking the night before, arrive late for work. He approaches them, questions their behavior, and subsequently conducts a breathalyzer test, which indicates their intoxication. Despite all their attempts to deny being drunk, Jake is not fooled and expresses his disappointment, especially since he is now in recovery from alcoholism. Jake fears that their actions can affect his sobriety, and thus they should be honest about their mistakes. Captain Jake of the fishing vessel Saga sends two crew members, Jam and Kenny, to their room to sober up after he finds out that they are intoxicated. He tells them to return at 5 o'clock to blow another breathalyzer. This lag angers the crew, who must wait for the drunk ones to sober up and begin working. After Kenny and Jam cleared their system and retook the exam, the team resumed construction despite the stormy weather. Kenny's job is vital because he needs to watch the sensors to make sure things are safe. Yet, in his sleep, Kenny puts the crew in danger. When Nick woke up and found Kenny sleeping in his place, he knew something was not right. He gives Jake the full story, worried for the crew's safety. Jake finds out from Kenny that he had trouble sleeping because of a stomachache. Jake is first of all very angry, but then he realizes how serious the situation is and he gradually calms down. He points out that Kenny's behavior could have led to deadly outcomes and underscores the significance of putting safety first. The result of that action made the crew encounters more difficult as a result of the laziness and irresponsibility of some members, which underlines the importance of teamwork and responsibility on a fishing vessel. Drinking is not a bad thing, but too much of it harms, and in this case, it did cost the whole team. On the next boat, the fight was caused by something else. Deckhands fight on Seabrook. Getting frustrated is part of life on sea, and the deckhands of the Seabrook crew also have their fair share of it. But this time, deckhands named Matt Bradley and Jake Anderson end up in a physical fight. The crew were having a hard time crab hunting, which contributed to the mood worsening and crew members blaming each other. Matt, a skilled seaman, was annoyed with Jake, a rookie for the way he perceived poor performance and lack of proper procedure. Frustration may lead to fights, and as seen here and also in another vessel, Northwestern, frustration may be the cause of most fights after all. The clash between two crew members. On Northwestern, Sig Hansen had been struggling with an unlucky streak as well as empty crab pots for some time. It then resulted in arguments when it came to the way the pots were handled between those who supported a different way of doing things. This exchange degenerated into a shouting match and fighting between two crew members. Captain Hansen felt let down and emphasized cooperation. While they were having this issue, Brenna A was also facing a crisis from a crew member named Brett. The crisis on the Bering Sea. Out in the Bering Sea, far from Dutch Harbor, there's a fishing ship named the Brenna A that catches crabs. The crew is in serious trouble because their crab pots are broken. When the pots are broken, the crabs can escape. But there's a rule: all pots should have their cotton strings on them. Over time, this cotton dissolves, letting trapped crabs go free. The problem is that some pots are missing this cotton, so the crabs can't escape. The team is panicking because they're losing a good catch, which means they're losing money. They have to check all the pots to make sure they have the right equipment. Some pots are missing their cotton, and that's bad. It's Brett's job to make sure everything is okay, but it seems like he's not doing his work properly. The captain is furious because Brett isn't fixing the pots, causing many problems for everyone. The team is upset because they're catching much less, which means less money. They're not only losing time, but also facing the challenge of catching more crabs before returning to shore. They've caught some crabs, but there should have been more. It's become chaotic, and everyone is highly stressed about it. Finally, they need to stop fishing so they can unload the crabs they've caught. Unfortunately, they don't have enough crabs, and time is running out. The captain is discouraged, and the crew is exhausted. It's been a tough day for Brenna A, and things aren't improving. At the end of the day, facing a dire situation, the crew gathers for a discussion. The captain is frustrated because things aren't improving, and he believes it might be time for one crew member, Brett, to leave. They meet to address the problem. The crew chief starts by explaining that losing money is a big issue, and he believes Brett is partly responsible for the ongoing financial problems. He suggests that letting Brett go might be the solution. However, some crew members are worried about how they'll manage without him. Amanda tries to convince the others that they can handle it without Brett, and the rest of the group agrees. At that point, Brett admits that it hasn't been smooth for him and his colleagues. He realizes that he hasn't been doing his job well, especially with handling the crab pots. You can feel the tension in the air as everyone shares their thoughts about Brett. The captain decided that Brett would need to leave the boat after one more voyage. The captain arranged a flight for Brett to return home, and although Brett felt sorry, he accepted the captain's decision. The next day, when they arrived at Dutch Harbor to unload their catch, the crew reflected on the challenges they had faced. The captain's choice to let go of that crew member was smart. Otherwise, more disagreements might have occurred on board. There was also another situation where crew members were released from their duties. The captain and crew fight the wizard on the wizard. Things are about to get hot between Captain Bill and one of his crew members, Jared. Zach, who is the son of Bill, hired Jared. However, of late, Jared has not been doing his duties well. Bill is cranky because he thinks that all the ship's problems are because of Jared. Tension between them seems to intensify, and Bill thinks about dismissing Jared. While they are chatting, Bill tackles some issues with Jared, for example, insurance and warrants. Jared tries to deny all that, but Bill doesn't believe him. Jared gets accused of lying and not taking responsibility for what he did. Bill is crushed because he supposedly had his back, but Jared didn't level with him. Eventually, Bill decided to release Jared. He feels like he can't count on Jared anymore, and he doesn't want someone in his boat who is untrustworthy. It is a difficult decision for Bill, for he doesn't like playing the bad guy, but he knows that he has to do what's best for the crew and the boat. Before Jared departed, the mood on the vessel got better. The crew is happy because they no longer have to deal with Jared's issues. They believe that with Jared out of the picture, things are supposed to be easier now. Captain Bill will further contemplate the matter as he continues to work on the boat. Then he understands that straightforwardness and faith are the essential things in a fishing boat, and no one should lie to him. His decision to remove Jared from his ship helped, as it was very obvious that peace had returned to the crew. The Time Bandit crew captain Jonathan Hillstrand from Time Bandit is just a few minutes away from another ship, the Wizard. They crossed paths and greeted each other, then proceeded to discuss the hustle and bustle of the crab season. Captain Jonathan is curious to know how the crew of the Wizard is doing. Despite certain difficulties, the team guarantees him that they are all right and that there are enough crabs around there. Nevertheless, the discussion gets a bit more personal when Roger, one of the crew members, starts sharing some issues he's been struggling with. He candidly admits that he struggled in town recently and overdid it in bars instead of being with his family. Roger recollects his Christmas last year while being away from his children, and Captain Jonathan can relate to him since he also had the same feelings. Captain Jonathan muses about the value of family and how he did not share in his children's major life events. He admits his flaws and asks Roger for forgiveness for not being a better example. The emotions fill the dialogue as they debate the difficulty of combining work and personal life. In addition, there is friction between Zach, who is another crew member, and Captain Jonathan on the boat. Zach says that he is disappointed with the way he has been treated and does not feel like he is being helped enough to move ahead in his professional life. Captain Jonathan, in the meantime, also shows his frustration with Zach and sadness for not being a better father for him. The conversation finishes in a mournful mood as both Zach and Captain Jonathan try to settle their feelings of loss and frustration. Despite having different motivations, they both yearn to get ahead and find an approach to working things out. It is a touching moment indeed that brilliantly illustrates the complexities of sea life and the value of family and personal relationships. While this beautiful scene was happening, Captain Sean Dwyer was not working with a crew member named Britt, who kept complaining about the size of the catch. Difficulties of a failed fishing trip. The captain, Sean Dwyer of Brianna A, is also faced with difficulties that he has to overcome to manage a failed fishing trip. However, Captain Sean continues to be very optimistic, although the rigging broke and cost 2 pots. He urges his crew to work extra hard to offset the deficit. The crew of the Brenna A is relieved as they drag their crab pots, and they find out they have a considerable catch. Despite the obstacles, they finally get a good amount of crab, which will improve the crew's spirit. Nevertheless, problems begin when one of the crew members, Britt, starts grumbling about the small size of the crabs they grab. Captain Sean swiftly switches off any negative vibes and urges the crew to keep their eyes on the goal. The fact that Captain Sean is assertive is an example of the necessity of discipline and teamwork on a fishing boat. He understands that cooperation is the key to success, and no one will undermine his authority without his consent. Despite all the obstacles Captain Sean faces, he stays determined to harvest as much crab as possible. Looking through all the issues Brett had in the previous chapters, it was understandable as to why he was let go of, as these events happened before the main finale, where he had to be sent away. The fishing vessel has crew members in conflict with others, especially Brett. He's being blamed for not getting the warnings out on time, especially that of the hook, which narrowly missed another crew member, Tony. This lack of communication appears sloppy and dangerous in a high-risk situation like a fishing boat. On the other hand, Captain Sean Dwyer of the Brenna A is having a good time. He's giving 100% to get close to his quota and is happy with the catch they've already gotten. He also picks bait, which has changed from sardines to herring because of the crab's choice. The selection of bait is also paramount in this regard, as it can greatly affect the number of catches. Even though it is doing well, there is still some unrest. Britt has been spreading all the negativity and making snarky remarks. It shows up as an obstacle and destroys the team spirit. Captain Sean knows better, and he advises Brett that his act could lead to possible punishment. Times without number, Brett had been warned, but he chose not to repent, which led to his being fired. Another instance of a lack of communication is with another fishing crew, where a crew member was almost injured as a result of the carelessness of another. The devastating sailing accident. When the fishing operation was underway, a deckhand named Jimmy Smith had an unexpected encounter with a crab trap. The pot almost fouled his foot, terrifying his friends. Luckily, Jimmy's foot does not seem to have any major injuries, but there is a bit of bleeding. The captain, Jake Anderson, sees Jimmy and makes sure that he is fine right away. He orders Jimmy to take his sock off so that he can evaluate the degree of damage. Well, it is great to hear that there is no serious damage, but Jake does not take any chances and makes sure Jimmy is kept comfortable and his foot is well looked after. On the contrary, Tim and Jimmy start to argue with each other. Tim tells Jimmy that he was not paying attention and that was the reason for the accident. Jimmy accounted for himself, saying that he had to put down the pot and Tim had no time to move his foot. This results in a heated discussion between them. Captain Jake steps in and pleads with both sides to listen to reason. He reminds Jimmy that he's a part of them as a crew and talks about his worries that he'll be gone. By that time, Tim starts criticizing Jimmy's injuries with the idea that Jimmy is putting on an act. As the situation escalates, Captain Jake is growing more and more frustrated. He highlights the need to look into the fishing operation, not a personal dispute. But the conflict still exists and there are such problems as interruptions in the fishing process that make the captain even angrier. Captain Jack looks to be the most stressed on the ship because the next chapter we are going to is still with the same captain and the same crew, but another headache from another crew member named Kenny. The quotas to be met on the sea, catching $2 million worth of crabs on the Saga's 107-foot-long vessel, puts a lot of pressure on Captain Jake Anderson. Having only 2 days to fill his tanks, he needs to be as fast as he can. Nevertheless, everything is not going to go according to plan. Jake had determined that he needed to supply 2 tanks at minimum, but he was looking at nothing but empty tanks with a 470,000-pound quota. While the rush is on, there are several hurdles to climb. With the poor attitude and low focus of the deckhand, Kenny Jensen, he is not doing well in response. Kenny's slowness troubles Jake because every second counts when reaching their targets. Once he places the next string of pots, he thinks about good things, but the first pot doesn't have anything. The setback just adds to the pressure when he already has to refill his tanks 48 hours before offloading. He is concerned about not being able to meet the quota, yet he still believes there is hope that their luck will change. The situation is tense as Jake and his crew are dealing with the challenges of getting a big enough crab haul before the deadline. Captain Jake Anderson is getting irritated by Kenny Jensen's attitude while working. Jake can no longer tolerate Kenny's behavior, and he is at the breaking point. Although Jake is annoyed, he cannot succeed at this without Kenny's assistance. Jake considered Kenny an essential component, although the latter wasn't always reliable. At a tense moment, Jake spews his anger at Kenny, saying that he is being lazy and does not work, causing several problems for the boat. Jake thinks that he's given Kenny enough chances to turn his behavior around, and he's tired of it. Even though Kenny gives him a hard time, Jake resolves to do his duties and accomplish what he set out to do. The captain is here to meet his goal, and is eager to work with Kenny to achieve it. However, there's yet another situation where a crew member is being lazy and not doing their job properly. Lack of work zeal on the job. On the 155-foot vessel Wizard, Captain Keith Colburn is facing challenges meeting his crab quota. Some crew members have left, and with a lack of catch, the pressure is on to fill the tank and escape financial trouble. Their hope grows as they reach the eastern side, anticipating a good catch. Everyone is busy loading gear and eagerly awaiting crabs as they pull up the pots. Finding crabs in the gear brings relief and excitement, suggesting their luck may turn. At the bait station, JJ and Paint Chip may not have baited the pots perfectly, leaving some pans empty and wasting time and resources. The captain addresses this issue, assigning the crew to ensure pots are properly baited for a satisfactory catch. Despite baiting challenges, the crew remains hopeful about the eastern gear's potential. Discovering crabs in the pots boosts morale for a successful fishing day. Nonetheless, it's crucial for the crew to fix these issues to reach their goals and have a successful season. On the 155-foot Wizard, there's trouble at the bait station as crew members JJ and Paint Chips neglect their duties, resulting in empty pots being hauled up. Captain Keith Colburn intervenes, reprimanding the crew for failing to properly bait the pots to attract crabs. Despite these flaws, the crew remains hopeful when they reach northern gear, where they hope to make a good catch. The crew continues to prepare the pots, even though they discover there's no bait in them. The captain addresses JJ and Paint Chips, urging them to be more diligent in their tasks. He emphasizes the importance of bait to attract crabs and boost their catch. The crab team receives a reminder about the critical role of baiting in their fishing success. What do you think of Deadliest Catch? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.